All right, everybody. So we're going to be talking about habit loops today. Exactly how to identify them, all the components of them, how they form, and then, of course, how to change and create new ones. So a book I highly recommend for you guys to read if this is something that really resonates with you, which it should, because this affects like 45% of the decisions and the actions, behaviors that we do in our day. Learning to identify these components and learning which components what to change in order to, get the desired result, to, achieve a goal, whatever it is. It's called The Power of Habit. And here it is. So this is the book. It is super awesome. It's based all on not only neuroscience, but psychology too. And both those things factor into, what influences the decisions that we make and why, how to change those decisions and results. So really highly recommend this book. I'm going to refer a lot to it throughout this presentation. So let's dive in. Okay. So what are habit loops? Approximately 45% of what we do, like I mentioned, or don't do, is because of the habits that we have formed. Move the screen here. So habits can occur outside of our consciousness, right? Or they can be deliberately designed. So they can occur even without our permission, like developing a habit of going to a fast food place or getting the donut on the lunch break. Or they can be, very deliberately planned out and created in order to achieve a certain result, okay? So in order to change or remove a certain habit, which you'll learn you really can't technically eliminate in any habit, it's more about changing them, you have to identify the three components that make up this habit or this habit loop. And this takes some effort. It takes some investigating, but it's well worth it if you are very serious about changing a certain habit, creating a new one, or achieving a certain goal. It's worth a little bit of research and a little bit of time and energy in order to make sure that you're going to be changing the right things, to make sure that your efforts are going towards something that are actually going to result in a positive result. So let's see, what are habit loops? So there are three parts, like I mentioned. There's the cue, which is basically the trigger that starts this habit. It can be a location. It could be a visual trigger, something that you see. It could be a time of day. It could be a smell. It could be a certain emotional state. Like when you are happy, you do this. When you are sad, you do this. When you're angry, anxious, all those things. Those are all emotional states. Other people can be a cue to certain behaviors, or a series of other behaviors, a series of certain things or rituals that you do may be the cue to this one habit, okay? The routine is the behavior itself. And this can be super simple or it can be very complex. Like your routine can be eating a cookie, okay? That's a very simple routine. Or it could be very complex as far as like the process that you do to, write a paper every day, okay? And then the third component is the reward. And this is the most important part because this is why the habit exists in the first place. Now, this reward can be something like food, drugs. For a lot of people, it's some sort of emotional payoff like praise, pride, self-gratification, things like that. So making sure that you learn to identify these three things, that is the first step into changing the habit itself. So like I mentioned, this requires diligent monitoring of your behavior and your emotional state around the habit. Now the emotional state part is really, really important. So it's not only what you do, but it's what you're feeling and thinking about, surrounding those behaviors and choices and those rituals. So this can be tricky, especially the reward component, because we often assume that reward is X when there's really more layers and complexity to that reward than you're even aware of, okay? And we'll dive into this. So once you have those three components identified, you can change one or all of them to either change that habit, or once you learn this system, you can create a new one, okay? So a habit loop example. So your habit is eating a cookie every afternoon in the break room at work. Now this habit has led to weight gain or is currently sabotaging your weight loss efforts, right? Like you've tried to just quit eating this cookie and you don't know why. You keep doing it no matter what you try, no matter what punishment you put in place, no matter what consequences, no matter how much money you bet with your friends that you can't do it. So after, a few days of taking notes around your behaviors, your environment, and your emotional state, you learn to identify all three components of this habit loop of eating the cookie every afternoon in the break work. So here is what you discovered. So your cue. Every day when you got the urge to get the cookie, you noted the time, the environment you were in, the people who were present, and your emotions, most important part, around the craving, okay? And so after a couple days, you start to identify and track patterns with this. So after several days of tracking, you identify that the craving would strike, okay, the urge to get this cookie, would strike every day between 3:15 and 3:45, no matter who you were with, where you were at in the office, or what type of day you were having, whether it was a good day or a bad day, okay? So you've identified your cue as time of day, particularly 3:15 to 3:45, all right? So that's step one. Step two is identifying the routine, and that's pretty obvious. The routine is eating the cookie, okay? It's the thing you want to change. So now you need to determine the true reward around the routine, around eating the cookie. Why do you eat the cookie? Why do you want to eat the cookie? Why do you do it even when you don't even really recognize that you want to do it, right? Why is this habit in place? And so this is where it gets tricky because a lot of people guess or make assumptions. And this is where you really have to experiment and track and document in order to determine what the reward is. Remember, this is the most important component. The reward is literally why we do things. It's why the habit has shaped and formed to what it is. So do not skip this part. So the reward, again, can be tricky. In order to figure out what the reward is, you did some experimenting. So you changed the routine to see if you experience the same feelings and satisfaction. Okay, so you kept the cue the same, right, around 3:15, 3:45. All right, you got up and you did something different. You changed the routine to see if the reward remained intact, to see if you felt the same after that you changed the behavior, to see if you, had the same type of satisfaction even after you changed the routine. So one day you ate a candy bar instead of the cookie, okay? So you did the same thing. At 3:15 or so, you got up from your desk, you walked over to the break room, and instead of getting a cookie, you got a candy bar instead, okay? You just did the same thing. The only component you changed was the type of thing you ate, okay? Another day, at 3:15 or so, instead of getting up and going to the break room and eating anything, you just left your desk and went for a walk by yourself. You didn't eat anything at all. You didn't go into the break room, okay? On the third day, you went to the break room like normal, but you skipped eating anything, and instead you just talked and gossiped and, just had a little social time for 10 minutes or so, like you normally do when you're eating the cookie. And so after experimenting and tracking your emotions around these routines, you realize that the reward was actually socializing and it had nothing to do with the cookie itself, okay? So a lot of people would assume that the cookie is the reward, but in this scenario, yes, the cookie may be part of the reward, but on a deeper level, you really enjoyed socializing and you enjoyed how you felt after you socialized, okay? So now we've identified all three components, okay? The cue was the time of day, so between 3:15 and 3:45. The routine was going to the break room to eat a cookie for 10 minutes while you're talking. And the reward was socializing, connecting with people, laughing, blowing off some steam and just kind of disrupting your monotonous day at your desk. So this is an example of a habit that's formed unintentionally and without your permission, right? More than likely, you didn't say, okay, I want to form the habit of eating a cookie every single day, all right? This was just a series, a sequence of behaviors that you did, enough times to where that habit develops. And it's just what you do without even thinking of it, okay? It's unintentional. So the reward is how your brain learns to save that sequence of behaviors and it encodes it for future use, okay? So when you do these things enough, this sequence, right, this getting up at 3:15, walking, going to the elevator, going up to the break room, getting the cookie, and then talking with a couple people for 10 minutes and laughing and having fun, and then getting back to your desk and feeling like totally energized and refreshed and ready to finish the second part of your day, your brain is imprinting these feelings and these emotional states, and it's saving it for future use. So your brain is telling you, oh, the cookie is what makes you happy, okay? And so these habits can form really fast or really slow depending on the complexity and depending on your mindset around the habit or the behavior, right? So Forming the habit of getting a cookie every day comes a lot faster than forming a habit around forcing yourself to exercise. Okay, it's two different things, and these factors can vary person to person. Okay, so speaking of habits, we didn't intentionally create. Let's talk about indulging in like donuts at work. Okay, so if you have never had a donut before, okay, you don't even know what a donut is, you don't know what the packaging is like, you don't know what it tastes like, you don't know the feelings associated with having that donut, there is nothing in our brains that makes us see the box of donuts. Okay, let's say it's Dunkin' Donuts, like the orange and the white box, okay? There's nothing in our brain that makes us see that box of donuts and automatically, triggers us to want a sugary treat when we've never had a donut before. Okay. However, once you've done that sequence of events, your brain learns that the donut box represents that yummy sugary treat, and it'll start to anticipate all the feelings and the sugar high and the neurological effects of having that sugar. So once you do the sequence of behaviors enough, like something that has a physical addiction like sugar, that habit is formed very fast. Okay. And the more you do the habit, the more it just becomes automatic and a part of your routine without you thinking of it, okay? So if you do a habit enough times, your brain will start to reap the benefits of the reward before the routine has ever been executed, okay? So back to the donut example. So you start to anticipate the feeling around eating the donut just by thinking about eating the donut, anticipating eating the donut, and talking about the donut. Okay, this is called a craving, and cravings are what ultimately drive the habit loop. Okay, this process leads to making a habit automatic. So the cue triggers not only the routine, but it also starts to trigger the reward even before the routine has been executed. Okay, so when you do this habit enough, eating the donut, the cue doesn't just trigger you to eat the donut. The cue actually starts to trigger the reward, the feeling, the thoughts, the physiological response around eating the donut even before you've eaten it. Okay, so these are neurological cravings. They emerge gradually over time, and you're probably not even aware that they exist. Powerful but delicate. Okay, so habits are very powerful, but they are very sensitive and very delicate. So if a cue changes even slightly, the habit can fall apart, okay? And this can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? It means that habits are malleable, which is great, right? But for most of you, habits fall apart very, very easily, okay? So if you have a habit or a routine of working out at 5:30 a.m., okay? The cue for this routine is setting your gym bag out the night before. So the moment you wake up and your alarm goes off, you see that bag first thing in the morning. Okay, that is your cue to get up, to go to the gym, and to get your exercise done, right? If you forget to set your bag out the night before, you're more likely to skip your workout. You skip this cue enough times, you skip your workout over and over again, and before you know it, you've gone 5 days without working out. You've gone 2 weeks without working out, okay? You are no longer in the habit of exercise. You've developed a new habit, okay, of not exercising, replacing those cues and those routines with something else, regardless if you consciously chose to do that or not. Okay, this is why they're so sensitive. So, when you look at really, really successful people, and success can mean different things to different people, but as far as like someone with a successful relationship that you admire, or success as far as, monetary wealth, or success as far as maintaining a healthy body composition, or, whatever success means, if you look at people at the peak of success in any of those areas of life, champions of sports, right? Professionals, they are very meticulous about their routines, their environment, protecting their time, setting boundaries, staying on a very strict schedule, auditing their social influences. They do not surround themselves with certain people. They only let certain people have access to them. They're very meticulous about this because they've realized that developing habits and protecting the cues and all the components around that habit is vital to their success. Okay, I don't know who said this quote, but it's awesome. Champions don't do extraordinary things. They do the ordinary things without thinking. Okay, it just means that they're super consistent. They don't have any superpowers, all right? They're not any more capable than you are. They're just super consistent. They've developed habits around the things that are important to them. They develop process around things that are important to them. And they ensure that those cues are always in place every single day. Okay, they try to control all of those components as much as possible, and they have boundaries and layers of protection to ensure that those things are already, always in place, even when the going gets tough. Okay, so creating a new habit versus changing an existing one. So to create a new habit, you need 2 steps. One, you need to find and establish a very obvious cue. And then 2, you need to clearly define the reward for doing the habit that you want to do on a regular basis, okay, the routine. So, this is why positive influence or positive reinforcement is more powerful than a negative consequence, okay? And this goes for training humans and animals, okay? This is why, a program like AA or a lot of recovery programs really emphasize the power of positive reinforcement instead of enforcing negative consequences and negativity in general in order to change the behavior, because positive reinforcement drives behavior. Remember, reward is the reason why we do the habit, we do the routine. So if you're trying to start a new habit, okay, come up with a very obvious cue. Like, let's say you've fallen off track of working out. Okay, you used to work out very consistently, you've fallen off. You're like, all right, I need to get this habit in place again. You need to establish a very simple cue, okay? So that cue for you may be that bag, that you see every single morning ready to go. Or it may be, bringing the bag in your car to work, to where when you get in your car after work, your bag is there, packed, full of your workout clothes, your workout shoes. You do not have to go home and risk staying at home, sitting on your couch and not going to work out. Okay, so there is your cue. And then you need to clearly define a reward, some sort of positive reinforcement that, makes sure that the habit becomes a positive thing. You associate it with good, fun feelings. So, I don't always like to use food as a reward, but it can be. Like, let's say you work in a really fun smoothie or a treat or a snack, or maybe it's you buy yourself something very small, right? So, but it's important that you don't reward yourself ahead of time, right? You only provide the reward, the positive reinforcement to yourself after the behavior is done. Okay, so this is how you create a new habit. Find a simple and obvious cue, okay? Make it simple so you can actually do it, okay? And then clearly define and set up a reward system for yourself after you do the routine and habit, okay? And if you do this new sequence, okay, frequently enough, the faster it'll become a habit, okay? And the more you do this habit, the faster the reward happens even before the action or routine occurs. Remember that craving, the anticipation, okay? The reward will become present in anticipation of the reward, okay? For example, the working out. Maybe for you, the positive reinforcement and the reward in the beginning is something external, right? Is the treat, it's buying the thing, it's not a feeling. But after a while, you start to feel, some positive feelings. You start to become more confident. You start to realize the endorphins have a positive effect on your mood. You feel a sense of accomplishment, and your reward starts to change over time. Right? And so the more you put these sequences of events to practice, the more you start to feel the benefits of that reward, of those positive feelings, of that sense of accomplishment, of the stress relief, just driving to the gym, just anticipating getting your workout in today. You're like, I know I'm going to feel so much better after I work out. I know how I feel afterwards. It's not always fun while I'm doing it, but I understand and anticipate all the positive benefits and the positive reinforcement of the reward after the routine is done. But you start to feel those things and experience those feelings even before you've done the workout. Okay, so that is where habits become an ingrained part of your day and your lifestyle. And this is why in the beginning stages of forming a new habit, it's important that you're as consistent as possible and that you really set yourself up for success as far as creating an environment to where you're not tempted, to where you're minimizing challenges and roadblocks and things like that, okay? So now, as far as habits that are already in your life, okay, remember we can't necessarily eliminate habits, we can change them, okay? So the best way to change an existing habit is to replace the routine, but keep the cue and the reward, okay? So an example, Q. You smell the food when you walk into the cafeteria, okay, at your workplace, all right? It smells awesome. So that is your trigger, okay, to eat. Okay, your current routine, the current habit that you want to change is you order unhealthy food from the cafeteria. Okay, and you've identified that the reward from the routine is you feel happy and you feel full because you've had, a meal that makes you feel full and satisfied, is flavorful, and you also got to spend times with friends and socializing. Okay, so the component that you should be changing here in order to change the habit is to bring prepared food to replace the unhealthy food that you're eating in the cafeteria. Okay, so you're gonna, anticipate that that the cue is smelling the food in the cafeteria. So now you're going to change the routine by walking into the cafeteria, but bringing your prepped food that has, a lot of high volume, so a lot of vegetables, lower in calories, packed full of flavor, but it's a much healthier choice that, is in alignment with your goal of getting healthier, losing weight, improving body composition, whatever it is, and you still have the same reward because you're full now from having food. It's flavorful food that you're choosing, foods that you enjoy. You're flavoring with things and making sure there's textures in there that you want to experience. And you're also still eating with friends. So you get that socialization, the time to chat and be within your community. Okay? So, I mentioned earlier that habits are very powerful, but they're also very delicate. And so one of the biggest factors that cause habits to fall apart is stress. So people can typically maintain their habits when stress is low and the routines are made intact. Everything just goes along like, no one disrupts your day. Your schedule doesn't change, right? And so that's when it's easiest to do the habits. It's when there's a wrench thrown in your routine or stress, all of a sudden shoots up because of family stuff, work stuff, whatever, a lot of pressure. That's when habits tend to fall apart for most people. Now, there are the exceptions, okay? There are the exceptions that when, no matter what is thrown someone's way, no matter what changes occur in their life, no matter the layers of complexity, that people continue to do their habits and they find success in spite of all the roadblocks. And after studying people for a very long time, as far as not only psychology, but within the neuroscience field, they've discovered that people that achieve really great things in their life, that overcome adversities, and that continue their habits in spite of stress, there is one big common denominator, and that was belief. So these people that had success had belief in something really big, okay? Whether it was belief in a religion, whether it was belief in, just a bigger meaning to, what they were doing and working towards and striving towards, belief in a powerful why behind their habits and behaviors, belief that things will truly get better, even though they're currently not better right now, belief that they are worthy and capable of reaching those goals that they want to work towards. So if you do not believe that the desired outcome is possible, then you won't take action in order to achieve it. So this is why defining a powerful why for every goal is important. Okay, you need to make sure that you're right up here before you set in place, a series of actions and behaviors to do in order to achieve the result. Okay, because in the back of your mind, if you don't believe the result is possible, then when the going gets tough, the behavior will fall apart. You will stop doing the things necessary in order to achieve the result. Because deep down inside, you truly don't believe it's possible, or you do not believe that you are worthy of them, okay? So developing belief is done fastest in a community, and this is proven time and time again. Now, this belief and influence can be negative or positive, okay? So this is why social influences and the people that you surround yourself with, that you spend time with, that you allow in your life and in your ear is so important to your behaviors, okay? So finding community, finding a group, finding, a community of people really helps speed up indoctrinating and believing in something bigger faster than anything else and trying to go on your own, okay? Because community provides proof that that what you desire is possible, right? If you, for example, coming into Elevate, right? If you really want to, let's say, lose weight, okay? and you've been trying to do it on your own, and you come to Elevate and you see not only on the walls do I have before and after pictures of people that have done what you want to do, but you can talk to those people in person, and they can then, provide in-person, firsthand testimonial and social proof to that. Yes, it is possible. I've done it. I'm just like you. You can do it too. Okay, that community can provide a sense of borrowed confidence, right? They will believe in you before you start to believe in yourself, okay? They will show you that you're capable of achieving whatever it is, that you're worthy of achieving whatever it is, and that on your journey, even when we do falter, because we all do, we all struggle, we all make mistakes and fall off, okay? When we falter in our belief, our community is there to remind us of what we can do and achieve. So this is why, joining a community like Elevate is so powerful to your success. This is why people, love being a part of masterminds and team sports. And this is why people congregate with each other. And this is why, the people that are around you can really hold you back in life, because if the people that are around you and that have a lot of social, influence in your life, if they are doing things that are not in line with what you want to do, they're going to influence you to be out of alignment with what you're trying to achieve. It's going to make it harder for you to be the outlier. Okay. So, being different is hard. Getting out of your comfort zone is hard. People don't like change, right? Because if you're changing and if you're doing something different than what everyone else is used to or is comfortable doing, it serves as a reminder and as a mirror to them that they are either not ready to make those changes, they don't want to make those changes, they don't have a deep enough why, or whatever, and you may get some backlash. So that's why it's important to join a community, to be with a group of people that are not only in the process and in the journey with you, but that also have people that have already gone to where you want to go, and they're already there. They're 2, 4, 10 steps ahead of you, right? And they've done this process over and over and over again, right? It allows you to believe it's possible, okay? So if you set out to develop a new habit and create cue reward, but you don't believe in the deepest part of your being that your goal is possible or that you're worthy or deserving of achieving the goal, your habit will fall apart the moment stress occurs or there's a change in your life. Okay, so just because you've established these 3 components, this habit loop, it doesn't mean you'll always be motivated to execute it. Okay, motivation does not lead to success. Discipline does. It's commitment to yourself, it's commitment to your goals, your greater why, the belief. Okay, it's bigger than the instant gratification. Okay, it's a long game, and doing what you know you should do, even though you don't feel like doing it, is what leads to success. Okay, so in conclusion, you cannot eliminate habits, but you can absolutely change them. It has been proven over and over again in both the psychology field and the neuroscience field, okay, what happens in our brain, that habits are highly malleable. So you can change any habit you want at any stage of your life, no matter who you are, what you've been through, or regardless of how long that habit has been in place. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it is simple. It takes a lot of hard work. But step 1 is developing the awareness of those 3 components, of identifying them, okay? But the biggest factor here is taking action, okay? It's what are you going to do? What are you going to change about those 3 components that will lead to the change of the habit? Consistent action over and over again, rep after rep,